Imagine this: a prestigious event at a luxury resort, where the wealthy and influential mingle over cocktails and business deals. Among the impeccably dressed guests, a black man stands calmly, observing the room. Yet, instead of warm greetings, whispers spread and tensions rise. Some visitors demand his removal, assuming he doesn't belong. What they don't realize is that this man isn't just any guest. He's an invited investor, someone whose contributions could change the very future of this event. As the staff awkwardly approaches him, trying to balance the demands of the uneasy crowd and their own professionalism, the question hangs in the air: how will he respond? And more importantly, when the truth comes out, how will those who judged him react? This story unfolds as a striking reminder of assumptions, prejudice, and the power of truth to shift perspectives. Let's dive in. The man remained composed, his presence calm yet commanding. He didn't flinch as the murmurs grew louder, or as people's eyes darted toward him with suspicion. He knew exactly why he was there, but he also understood the weight of the moment. Nearby, a few guests whispered harshly to the staff, their impatience clear. How could security miss this? One woman hissed, clutching her designer bag as if his very existence posed a threat. What they didn't know was that this man wasn't new to these kinds of reactions. He'd worked tirelessly to earn his seat at the table, facing skepticism at every step, proving himself again and again in boardrooms that often doubted him before he even spoke. But this night wasn't about proving anything. He'd been invited personally by the event organizer, someone who saw his brilliance and believed in his vision. Little did these guests know, their assumptions were about to unravel in ways they couldn't imagine. As the tension in the room thickened, a staff member cautiously approached the man, her voice low and hesitant. "Excuse me, sir," she began, her words carefully chosen. "There seems to be some misunderstanding. Could I see your invitation?" She looked embarrassed, clearly caught between doing her job and the awkwardness of the situation. The man reached calmly into his jacket pocket, pulling out the sleek black envelope with the event's gold embossed logo, a VIP invitation. Her face flushed with discomfort as she examined it. "Thank you," she murmured, stepping back. But the damage was done. Eyes lingered on him, some skeptical, others downright hostile, as though they were waiting for the catch that would confirm their assumptions. Meanwhile, across the room, the event organizer noticed the growing commotion. He began weaving through the crowd, his face showing a mix of confusion and urgency. What had started as a night to celebrate innovation and collaboration was now turning into something far more revealing, a mirror reflecting biases many were unaware they held. The organizer finally reached the scene, his expression shifting as he noticed the unease rippling through the crowd. People whispered in hushed tones, their eyes darting between the man and the staff. "What's going on here?" he asked firmly, his voice cutting through the tension. A guest stepped forward, her tone laced with indignation. "I'm sorry, but we're all wondering, why is he here? Surely there must have been some mistake." Her words hung in the air, carrying the weight of her assumptions. The organizer glanced at the man, who stood silently, his expression unreadable but steady. Without breaking eye contact, the organizer spoke, his voice calm yet unmistakably sharp. "This man is here because I invited him." Gasps rippled through the room, and a wave of discomfort washed over the guests. The organizer turned to address the crowd, his tone growing firmer. "In fact, he's one of the most important people here tonight." The room fell silent, the weight of those words sinking in. All eyes were on the man now, some wide with disbelief, others filled with shame. Yet he didn't speak, choosing instead to let the moment unfold. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, their assumptions unraveling by the second. But the organizer wasn't finished, and what he was about to reveal would change everything. The room buzzed with uncertainty, guests shifting uncomfortably as the organizer's words sank in. But before he could elaborate, a man in a sharp gray suit stepped forward from the back of the crowd. His voice carried authority, and his smile was thin, almost forced. "Well, it's good to hear he's invited," he said, addressing the organizer. "But surely you understand how this might seem. Unusual to some of us." The organizer's expression hardened. "Unusual?" he repeated, his voice now carrying an edge. The man in gray shrugged lightly, his demeanor calm yet patronizing. "We've all worked hard to be here. We have a certain standard, an understanding of who fits into this space." His words weren't loud, but their impact rippled through the room like a shockwave. The invited man, silent until now, finally stepped forward. "And who decides that standard?" he asked, his voice steady yet piercing. His question hung in the air, cutting through the layers of prejudice hidden behind polite facades. The crowd grew tense, unsure how to respond, when suddenly another guest spoke up. A woman, standing near the edge of the group, said quietly, "Wait, I know who he is." All eyes turned to her as she hesitated, clearly debating whether to say more. The man in gray shifted uncomfortably, his confident demeanor starting to crack. The woman continued, her voice growing stronger. "He's not just an investor. He's the one funding the biggest project this event is built around." The room froze. Faces shifted from doubt to realization as they began to understand that this wasn't just about one man being out of place. It was about the very foundation of their assumptions crumbling. But the full truth and its implications were still waiting to unfold. The room went silent, the weight of the woman's words settling over the crowd. All eyes turned to the man in gray, whose confidence had now morphed into visible discomfort. The organizer, sensing the moment, stepped forward, his voice firm and unyielding. "That's correct," he said, gesturing toward the man who had been so harshly judged. "Not only is he a key investor, but he's also the driving force behind the vision that brought us all here tonight." A ripple of shock moved through the room as whispers erupted once again. The man in gray seemed to falter, but before he could speak, the invited man calmly took a step forward. His voice was clear, and his words carried a quiet power. "You were so quick to question whether I belonged," he said, looking directly at the man in gray. "But the real question is, do you?" The crowd gasped, the unexpected twist hitting hard. The man turned to face the others, his composure unshaken. "This isn't just about me," he continued. "It's about how we define who gets a seat at the table. Tonight, you've shown that your judgments are based not on merit, but on appearances and assumptions." The tension was palpable, but before it could escalate further, the organizer spoke again. "He's right," he said, addressing the crowd. "This event is supposed to be about progress and innovation. If we can't challenge outdated biases in this very room, then what's the point of any of this?" The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by a few murmurs of agreement. The man in gray, now visibly embarrassed, turned and quietly exited the room. As for the invited man, he remained composed, but his message had landed. This wasn't just about proving he belonged. It was about forcing everyone to confront their own blind spots. And as the evening continued, the atmosphere began to shift, leaving everyone with much to reflect on. As the evening progressed, the mood shifted from tense to reflective. Conversations became quieter, more thoughtful. Many guests, previously so certain of their judgments, found themselves reevaluating not just the events of the night, but their own ingrained assumptions. The invited man, now surrounded by a few curious and apologetic guests, shared his vision for the future, a future built on collaboration, innovation, and breaking barriers. By the end of the night, the organizer approached him with a handshake, and an expression of gratitude. "Thank you," he said sincerely. Not just for being here, but for showing us what we needed to see. The man nodded, his calm demeanor unshaken. As he left the event, the room felt different, lighter, perhaps, but also heavier with the weight of lessons learned. Sometimes change doesn't come from grand gestures, but from moments that force people to see the world and themselves differently.